Have you ever noticed that the most dangerous people in a room are the ones who say the least? While everyone else is talking, explaining, justifying, they sit back, watching, waiting, and when they finally speak, everyone listens. Today, I'm going to show you why silence is a weapon and how you can use it to win arguments without saying a word. We live in a world that rewards noise. The loudest voice gets the attention. The fastest talker wins the pitch. But here's the paradox. The more you speak, the less people respect you. Because power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I watched a meeting where two executives were pitching ideas to the CEO. The first executive talked for 15 minutes straight. Charts, data, enthusiasm. He filled every second of airtime. The second executive spoke for 2 minutes, then stopped. Just sat there. The CEO leaned forward and said, "Tell me more." Guess which executive got the green light? The one who made the CEO come to him. This principle comes from Law 4 of Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. Always say less than necessary. King Louis XIV was a master of this. When his ministers came to him with decisions, they would debate in front of him, arguing passionately for their side. And Louis would sit there, silent, watching. When they finished, he would say just 3 words, "I shall see." That's it. No explanation, no justification, just silence. And you know what happened? His ministers left terrified. They would spend days analyzing those 3 words, trying to guess what he meant. He controlled them with silence. Now you might be thinking, that's a king. I'm just trying to survive Monday morning meetings. But here's the thing. This works at every level. I've seen junior employees use silence to shut down micromanaging bosses. I've seen freelancers double their rates just by pausing after the client says, "That's too expensive." The client fills the silence. And suddenly, they're justifying why they can actually afford it. So why does this work? Why does silence have so much power? Because human beings are wired to avoid uncertainty. When there's a pause in conversation, it creates cognitive pressure. That gap, that silence, feels unresolved. And to relieve the tension, people start talking. They over-explain. They reveal information they never intended to share. They make concessions just to fill the void. Think about the last time someone asked you, "Why did you do that?" And you immediately launched into an explanation, justifying, defending. By the time you finished talking, you'd said 3 things you didn't need to say, and now they have ammunition. But what if you just paused? What if you'd said nothing for 3 seconds, then calmly asked, "What do you mean?" Suddenly, they're the ones explaining. You flipped the script. Recent research in negotiation science confirms this. Studies from the Journal of Applied Psychology show that strategic pauses help negotiators move from reactive thinking to analytical thinking. In other words, silence forces you to stop, think, and observe, while your opponent keeps talking and digging their own hole. Let me give you 4 situations where silence is your best weapon. Number 1. In negotiations. When someone makes you an offer, don't respond immediately. Let the silence hang. They'll start second-guessing themselves. They'll sweeten the deal. All because you said nothing. I once watched a salary negotiation where the candidate was offered $70,000. She said nothing, just looked at the HR manager. 5 seconds passed. The HR manager said, "We could probably go to 75. Another pause. 80,000. Final offer. She never said a word. She just waited. Number 2. In confrontations. Someone accuses you, attacks you. Your instinct is to defend yourself, to explain. Don't. Stay silent. Let them finish. The longer you wait, the weaker their position becomes, because they're filling the space with emotion, not logic. I had a colleague who was accused of missing a deadline in front of the whole team. Everyone expected him to panic. Instead, he just sat there, calm, didn't say a word. The accuser kept talking, getting more and more emotional, until it became obvious he was just lashing out. By the end, the room was on my colleague's side. He never defended himself. He just let the silence do the work. Number 3, in meetings, you don't need to be the first to speak. You don't need to have an opinion on everything. The person who speaks last, after everyone else has revealed their hand, has all the power. Pay attention next time. The person who talks first sets the frame, but the person who talks last controls the decision. Because by then, you've heard every argument, you know every angle, and when you finally speak, it lands with weight. And number 4, with difficult people. You know the type, the ones who try to provoke you, who push your buttons, who want a reaction. The worst thing you can do is give it to them. Instead, go silent, let them talk, let them spiral, and when they're done, just look at them. No anger, no defensiveness, just calm observation. It's unnerving because they can't manipulate what they can't provoke. This works with toxic coworkers, with passive-aggressive family members, with anyone who feeds on your emotional reactions. All right, so how do you actually do this? How do you resist the urge to fill the silence? Here's a simple technique. The 3-second rule. When someone asks you a question, especially a loaded one, count to 3 in your head before answering. 1, 2, 3. It feels like an eternity, but to them, it's just a pause, a moment of consideration. This does 2 things. First, it stops you from reacting emotionally. You shift from reactive mode to strategic mode. Second, it signals confidence, because powerful people don't rush. They think. They choose their words carefully. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine your boss says, "I need you to take on this extra project." Your instinct is to immediately say yes because you don't want to seem difficult, or to immediately say no because you're overwhelmed. But both responses are reactive. Instead, pause, count to 3, then say, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you by end of day." You've just bought yourself time. You've demonstrated thoughtfulness, and you've avoided committing to something you might regret. Or imagine you're in a performance review. Your manager says, "I think you need to work on your communication skills." Your instinct is to defend yourself, to list all the ways you communicate well. But that makes you look defensive. Instead, pause. Count to 3. Then ask, "Can you give me a specific example?" Now they have to justify their criticism, and you've positioned yourself as someone who listens and reflects, not someone who reacts. But, and this is important, silence is not always the answer. If you're dealing with someone paranoid or insecure, especially a superior, too much silence can backfire. They'll think you're hiding something, or worse, that you're incompetent. In those cases, you speak, but you say just enough, no more. You give them reassurance, but you don't over-explain. Remember, the goal is control, not performance. There's a scene in the film The Social Network where Mark Zuckerberg is being deposed by lawyers. They're trying to provoke him, asking aggressive questions. And he just sits there, calm, minimal answers, no elaboration. At one point, the lawyer tries to bait him into an argument, and Zuckerberg just stares, waits. The lawyer gets flustered, because you can't win an argument with someone who refuses to engage. That's the power of strategic silence. You don't fight. You just don't participate in their game. Now, here's what happens when you start practicing this. At first, it feels awkward, unnatural. You'll want to fill the gaps. Your brain will scream at you to say something, anything, but push through that discomfort. Because on the other side of that silence is something remarkable. You'll start noticing things you never noticed before. You'll hear what people are really saying, not just the words they're using. You'll see their body language shift. You'll watch them reveal information they didn't mean to share. And people will start treating you differently. They'll stop interrupting you. They'll lean in when you speak, because you become scarce. And scarcity creates value. When you talk less, your words carry more weight. Here's your homework. The next time you're in a meeting, a negotiation, or even a casual conversation, try this. When someone says something provocative, don't respond immediately. Count to 3. Breathe. Then speak. Watch what happens. You'll notice people become uncomfortable. They'll start explaining themselves. They'll give you information you didn't even ask for. And you'll be in control. And here's an advanced move. After you've practiced the 3-second pause, try this. The 10-second silence. Someone makes a statement. You just look at them. Curious, attentive, but silent. 10 seconds. They'll start backtracking, qualifying, offering more. It's almost uncomfortable to watch because most people can't handle that much silence. But you can because you understand what's happening. You're not being rude. You're being strategic. One more thing, silence is also a shield. When you talk too much, you give people weapons to use against you. Every unnecessary word is a potential vulnerability. Every over-explanation is information they can twist. But when you say less, there's nothing to attack. You become a smooth surface. No handles, no weak points. Just calm, controlled presence. Silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. The world is full of noise, everyone's shouting, competing for attention. But you don't need to shout, because when you finally speak, people will listen. If this resonated with you, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me one situation where you'll try strategic silence this week. And remember, win without shouting. Strategy for the quiet mind.